Topping today's news, the Minister of Health gives the latest details on the dengue fever outbreak. 3 shot and 1 stabbed on a Monday evening filled with violence. And the Deputy Prime Minister shrugs off criticism by the opposition over the recent cabinet shuffle. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jcn Saunders. This is your JCN Evening News. It is a pleasure to have you join us. With over 50 people now infected with dengue fever in country, Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Michael Darwell is again urging residents to ensure that you do not have any breeding grounds around your homes.
Well, there's 52 cases in the Bahamas now, and of course, I said before, we are concerned about any rise in cases. We've been looking at the demographic associated with the increase, and over the weekend we had an additional 19 or 20 cases added to the 30 cases that we had before then. We're once again telling the Bahamian people to look at your surroundings, ensure that you don't have no buckets of water lying around that can cause the growth of the Aedes aegypti mosquitoes. We're up fogging. But of course, fogging only knocks what's airborne. And if you have these receptacles filled with water around the home, you continue to breed. That is concerned. So the Department of Environmental Health is working very closely with the ministry to really get the message out and to be very aggressive with the cases that we do find in the residence, where we go in and we do a SWOT check and fix the situation surrounding.
Although cases are mostly confined to New Providence, there are currently 3 confirmed cases on Grand Bahama.
One of the things I'd like to say is, as we speak, there's about 6 people in hospital with dengue. And it's very important to us to let the population know that dengue can be very serious. And it's important to once again execute the appropriate measure. Also, this week we found cases in Grand Bahama. And so I believe we have 3 confirmed cases in Grand Bahama with the possibility of an admission, if that's not the case, or maybe 2. And we are upping our investigation and fogging, as well as going from door to door with those cases that we do find, to ensure that we make sure the environment is protected so there's no increased breeding.
Dr. Darwell also clearing up reports by media last week that a majority of the individuals infected have contracted dengue type 3, which is more severe. He says type 3 is not the most severe unless the individual was previously infected with dengue types 1 or 2.
The possibility of the reaction being more severe is the case. The majority of cases that we found in New Providence at this particular time is type 3. And we believe from the last dengue outbreak in the Bahamas of any severe proportion in 2011, the serotypes were 1 and 2. And so if there's an immunological profile in the country, it is for 1 and 2, which means there could have been some people exposed to dengue with 1 or 2 and had very mild symptoms and didn't know you had dengue. And then there's some who are exposed and have severe forms of the manifestation of dengue. The reality is, if you've been exposed to 1 and 2 and you're exposed to 3, the possibility of you having a more severe reaction exists. But it is not that type 3 is more severe than type 1 and 2. That's not what I really said. I noticed the media reported it that way.
Again, symptoms of dengue fever include headache, fever, nausea, vomiting, rash, and pain, such as eye pains, typically behind the eyes, bone, muscle, and joint pains as well. People experiencing fever and 2 or more of these symptoms should see a health care provider. 2 shootings and 1 stabbing, all happening on Monday evening, leaving police to investigate. In the first incident, a 34-year-old female and an 18-year-old male have been hospitalized after being shot while on Carl Road off Claridge Road. According to reports, shortly after 7 p.m. on Monday, both victims, they were sitting on top of a vehicle when 2 masked occupants of a gold-colored Nissan vehicle that drove alongside them opened fire in their direction. As a result, both victims were shot in the lower extremities. The culprits fled the scene, making good their escape. Emergency medical technicians were dispatched and both victims were transported to the hospital for medical attention, where their condition remains unstable. In another shooting incident, a 32-year-old male paraplegic confined to a wheelchair was injured and hospitalized following a shooting that occurred on Kwaku Street. Police say around 11:07 p.m. the victim was sitting in his wheelchair at the front of his residence on Kwaku Street when he was approached by an armed unknown male who produced a firearm and shot him to his right elbow and his legs before fleeing the area in an unknown direction. Subsequently, the victim was transported to the hospital via private vehicle, where he is also listed in stable condition. Also on Monday evening, an 18-year-old female resident of Ambrister Street, that's in Fox Hill, she's been injured and hospitalized after being stabbed. According to police reports, sometime around 11:21 p.m., the victim was involved in a physical altercation with another female who produced an unknown sharp object and stabbed her to the right eye. The culprit then fled the scene in an unknown direction before the victim was transported to the hospital via EMS, where she is listed in stable condition. Once again, police are investigating these circumstances surrounding all of the incidents, and they're appealing to anyone with information that can assist their investigation to contact the police at 919-911 or anonymously at Crime Stoppers. That's 328-TIPS, 328-8477. After criticism from the official opposition and other personalities regarding the recent cabinet shuffle, Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper says he is not interested in the rhetoric.
And he is focused on the second half of the term. We are continuing to build on the progress we've had, and we're continuing to drive change. We continue to be very focused on our blueprint for change. We've laid out the mission, and the Prime Minister, in his wisdom, has determined who is best to serve in the various capacity to get the job done. We committed to doing the job of recovery, rebuilding, revolutionizing on behalf of the Bahamian people, and that is what we will do.
Speaking on the local radio talk show Morning Blend, Minister Cooper says everyone is entitled to their opinion and that Prime Minister Philip Davis is entitled to form the cabinet that he believes is best to fulfill the vision of his administration.
Well, again, people are entitled to their opinion. I don't follow the F&M very much, quite frankly. We have a job to do. We're focused on reopening and restoring the economy. Tourism is booming, record-setting numbers. We're very diligently focused on the work of infrastructure in the Family Islands, building out airports. We've increased minimum wage. We continue to provide social relief for the people, revamping and reloading on urban renewal and disaster recovery authority. I don't have no time to study the F&M.
Meanwhile, members of the opposition, including leader Michael Pintard, labeling the cabinet reshuffle as a desperate move, while F&M chairman Dr. Dwayne Sands likened it to putting lipstick on a pig. Asked about the opposition's claims that the Davis administration is taking credit for initiatives set in motion by the Minnis administration, Deputy Prime Minister Cooper says his focus is on his ministerial responsibilities.
Our system is such that the Prime Minister has the absolute authority to appoint a cabinet that he sees fit. Anyone wishing to understand or better appreciate his rationale might speak with him directly. But the reality is that I believe that he has comprised a cabinet where he believes our skills are best positioned in order to continue to drive the progress, to drive change, and to complete our mandate as laid out in our blueprint for change.
Asked by the host, Dwight Strawn, about concerns some citizens have with the Prime Minister reposting certain cabinet ministers who were constantly under fire in their previous portfolio, only to become cabinet ministers of another important ministry, Deputy Prime Minister Cooper reiterating his confidence in the Prime Minister's decisions. Following the rest, going into the second half of the Davis administration's term, Deputy Prime Minister Cooper says they will continue to focus on restoring the economy, providing social relief, and education reform. He reassures Bahamians that the second half of their term will be more about empowering Bahamians. Today, the Bahamas National Statistical Institute released its Consumer Price Index for June 2023. The monthly inflation rate in the Bahamas, which represents the overall change in prices for 2023, increased by 0.1% when compared to May of 2023. This increase is reflected in the overall price of items purchased by the average consumer during this period. This June 2023 increase followed a 0.4% increase between the months of April and May 2023. The categories of transportation, food, and non-alcoholic beverages saw increases of 3% and 1% respectively when compared to the previous month. Meanwhile, alcoholic beverages, tobacco, and narcotics, along with miscellaneous goods and services, recorded decreases of 0.9% and 2% for the month of June 2023. On a year-over-year basis, the Consumer Price Index rose 3% over the same period last year, 2022. The major categories that contributed to this rise include recreation and culture, along with alcoholic beverages, with increases of 21% and 10%, respectively. And finally, in this segment, in an effort to increase the public's awareness of their rights as a consumer, the Consumer Protection Commission, in partnership with the Ministry of Educational, Technical, and Vocational Training, is launching a logo competition for students ages 12 years old and up across the country in preparation for a revitalization of their logo. Executive Director of the Commission, Sharmi Farrington, explains the thought process behind this initiative.
We are seeking to engage students across the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We are aware that the Bahamas is not just Nassau alone, and so we thought it best to come to the ministry, which you have access to all of the schools across the Commonwealth, with our message of our logo competition. As you can see from the poster behind you, our Creative Mind logo competition, we really want to be, as we would say, a blessing to young students. We want to encourage them to be creative in designing a new logo for the Consumer Protection Commission.
Minister of Education Glenys Hannah Martin extends her gratitude for the partnership with the Consumer Protection Commission for children to compete artistically and understand their rights.
But in the meantime, with what is available to the department and the rights currently that are actionable, we want to commend the department for the work that they do, and we think it's we're appreciative that you have included in the embrace our young people so that they can be activated into this concept that as consumers in the work out there in the marketplace, that there are certain standards or rights that exist that they are able to vitiate through your department or elsewhere. So I think this is a very important intervention and represents a sort of deepening of I guess the civilization of our nation, in terms of the fact that someone who goes in a store and spends money or buys a car, or whatever it is, that they're able to get redress and not find themselves at a loss in the deep blue sea.
Ms. Farrington shares details on how the competition will work.
So we're requiring them to do some research on the Consumer Protection Act so that they, in turn, will be educated about what it is that we do. And you can see our first prize winner will receive $500 and prizes. Our second place will get $250 also in prizes, and our third place will get $100 and prizes. Why is this necessary? This is very necessary because we know that the mandate of the government is to give the consumer a louder voice. And to do that, we must be engaged in educating our public. And so we want to first start at the high school level, and I'm told now 12-year-olds are now in primary school, director. A few of them are in, so we want to make it clear that they are not excluded from this competition. And so we want the Ministry of Education to kindly assist us in getting the word out to all of the schools in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and also any young people who wish to engage in this competition.
The competition will run until September 20th. All submissions can be dropped off at the Consumer Protection Building on Tonic Williams-Darling Highway. For more information on the contest, you can check out the Commission's Facebook page or their website at cpcbahamas.com. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.